Hustle Migration is live, man. Adam, how are you feeling today? How early did you wake up?
Bro, I've been up since like 5:30, which is probably you've been up since like 4:30.
Yeah.
It's one of those days, bro. It's a 2-potter day. I'm literally finishing my second pot of coffee, and I probably need a third one. It's one of those days. Anybody who's pulled anything over the finish line like this, congrats to our dev team, because this was like the last 1% is 99%. It's so difficult at the end. There's always something that gets you. And of course, there was something that got us, but they got it done, man. At the end of the day, they got it fucking done.
Chris, how we feeling, man?
What's good, dude? I'm pretty cracked. Had like 10 cups of coffee, but we're firing off, baby. We are firing off. Let's go. Should I have another? Like this message if I should.
Hell yeah.
Following in Adam's footsteps, man. Oh, man, it feels good. Yeah, the last 5 or 6 hours or so was stretch. We'll kind of dive into that. But the bigger and awesome feature is we're sitting at 25% of the token supply migrated. So what is that? 250 million tensor has been moved in the first 30 minutes, which is actually quite incredible because migrations generally, have a quite low turnout per se. And I know a lot of our whales that exist in Europe went to bed. And so
I was telling them, stay up, man. 10 more minutes.
I suspect we could get this over 50% in maybe 24 hours or so, which is great, right? Because that shows that the community is still sticking around. It actually was somewhat of a question of, how much of a community actually does stick around when a token launches through Pump Fun. And generally that turnout is quite low. But here, the team and the community believes in all of us, and we're having a really good time. Um, I guess the thing, maybe we should just start with kind of how we got here. Maybe is a little bit of, a little bit of a backstory. I also did pin to the top the Agent Hustle thread. Please, throw a repost to it, some comments. Also, learn about what Migrate Fun is, which we will dive into here in a second, which I actually have on the live stream right now for anybody that is tuning in. Oh man, so how did we get here? The short story is that the Emblem company has been around since 2016, and towards the middle of 2024, we started building an AI wallet because we knew that AI was coming, but we didn't really know to what degree. Then the AI kind of meme coin explosion took off towards the end of last year, and we decided, hey, we have an AI wallet. Let's see how we could combine the wallet with the token. And so we launched Tensorium. Tensorium, though, at the time was more of a personal project, the team. So Agent Hustle actually had no name at the time. He was just a personal side AI. So we asked him, what we should name the token. The token's name was Tensorium, the ticker Tensor. Obviously after it's deployed, we realized that there's a quite large project on Solana that has the same ticker. So somebody says here on the live stream, what was migration? We'll just tune in and we will explain it for you. So after we launched Tensorium, we launched on Pump Fund. The token went quite crazy after people realized that it was us who deployed it, because we did try to deploy it anonymously. Token went to 20 mil, went down to 500K, up to like 5 mil, then back down to 100K, right? Kind of just bouncing around. And we built Agent Hustle. Agent Hustle V1 was launched on December 31st, which is just the AI itself, which is also in a thread that's pinned to the top. So you could kind of see some of the history that goes into it. Maybe I'll pull it up here on the live stream for people to see. So we launched Agent Hustle V1 on New Year's Eve, and it was just the AI. It had memory. A lot of people loved Agent Hustle because he actually remembers your conversations. And then in March, we launched Agent Hustle V2, which is kind of what you see today with all of the DeFi integrations, the swapping with Radium, LP, order limits, DCA, launch tokens on Pump Fund, trenching, all that nice combination. And then, we realized that there was a major issue and a big contrast between Agent Hustle, the users, and Agent Hustle, the token, which was actually called Tensorium. And so one of the main issues, which we actually saw something like this with the Emblem and Koval kind of relationship as well, is it was completely disjointed. Users were confused on, what Tensorium was. We had rebranded the project from Neural Eth to Tensorium to Agent Hustle, so 3 rebrands. And what we had come across is that launching a token on Pump Fund has a lot of short-term benefits, but man, there are a lot of obstacles for long-term pains. And a few of those is that there's a permanent metadata, so you can't change the image at all. You're forever locked, right? Because it's on Pump Fund. You have no access to the LP itself, so you don't. All the rewards that are trading, in Tensorium or any Pump Fund token, the creators have no access to those rewards, right? Or any access to the LP itself, right? Like the value that exists in there. And also the teams, most of them, the large majority, do not have a large token treasury. We only had 5% of the Tensorium token, right? Because we kind of launched it as an experiment and we were going to be anonymous. And obviously that kind of got away from us. And as we talked with a lot of AI projects and apparently a lot of builders from the Believe app community and some of the other long-term builders that are using Pump Fund, came across the same issue. And you actually see some projects that have shut down. Like one of them is called Magic Hat because they have no treasury. So we obviously long-term builders, we had to figure out a way to solve this. And so we said, we need the hustle ticker. First, it's a really good ticker. Not really. I don't think there's any other projects that really, have credibility or sustainability that have launched with the hustle ticker. So it's pretty much free and fair to be open and taken for branding. We wanted to have, access to the LP for rewards. That changes all of the tokenomics, right? It's really tough to implement tokenomics, right? Like staking and encouraging buying and stuff when you're not getting rewards. So, right, that hurts the long-term value of the token. And we needed a larger treasury as well for this to be sustainable. And Emblem actually has quite a history of doing migrations. In the history of Emblem Vault, Emblem Vault's done about 6 different migrations from different NFT projects to tokens themselves across different chains. So if there's anyone who's going to build this platform, it was us. And so once we built and figured out this kind of unlock of how this platform works, which I'll share here in a second, we realized that, hey, instead of having us do this, or instead of just us using this, we should productize this and offer it to other creators and builders who are sharing a lot of the same pains from us in terms of long-term building. So we created a platform called migrate.fun. And what you see today, if you go to migrate.fun, is the first ever experience of it. And what it is a migration platform. And I'm going to pin the thread up here at the top if anyone wants to dive into the post from migrate.fun. And actually quite surprising that nobody's ever built a migration platform, at least that I'm familiar with. They've all kind of just been one-off situations. So migrate.fun, I'll explain kind of how this works if you're a team who's interested, or from the hustle experience. And so from the hustle experience, it's quite simple. You go to migrate.fun, you come in here, you see the progress, right? I have it pulled up here on the live stream. You connect with the wallet. You hit migrate, and it takes about 10 seconds or so, and you're off with the hustle token. And with the hustle token, then we actually set up an LP on the other side of it, so you can immediately start trading. I'm gonna pull up the deck screener here in a second. Adam, would you like to share, your experience with it, and also kind of the experience that our lovely experienced team of Adam and Chris embedded into the platform? You're on mute, Adam.
Sorry, I was muted because my pig was crying upstairs.
She's migrating.
For me, just so everybody kind of understands, like we put in Solana to basically fund that liquidity pool, which is definitely an option for teams that want to do that. And I think a lot of teams that are kind of migrating their token over will want to do that, so there's trading immediately. But I think one way to look at this also is that you don't have to do that. And if you're doing kind of a community takeover, a CTO, or some other kind of optionality to it, is that you don't actually have to fund it. And our platform itself kind of allows this option where, you put in, and then basically there's a mechanism for it to fund itself by selling the initial tokens back into the liquidity pool on the other side. So basically unlocking those the liquidity that's stuck right now in pump contracts, if that makes sense. Did I get it, Chris? Does that make sense? I am a little punchy here.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
No, I think that's the interesting thing that people haven't really realized. I mean, I was looking at our friend who has Snap, right? There's $5 million sitting there, and there's almost no trading, right? How do you kind of access that liquidity? And this platform allows you to kind of look at it that way and actually access that.
Like, everyone's heard of a CTO, and there's been like a million CTOs, but you're just CTOing the same chart with the same sell pressure from above, the same like random distributed group of holders. You're not really like taking over anything. You're just inheriting like the bad voodoo of the last launch. And so this kind of gives you a fresh chart. It gets you a fresh token. It might get you some fresh supply, and it gets you just like whole new energy. It's like truly like what a real CTO should actually be. So this is like super helpful. Like Adam said, there's so much trapped liquidity in these contracts that are completely dead. And the community, some of them are like still super vibrant. There's just like nothing that they can do to kind of get that second wind of life. And now there's like finally a lifeline for them. So I think that this is actually going to be pretty popular.
Yeah. And so kind of how the platform's going to work, and maybe this is going to add some shock value to everybody, or maybe not. So kind of the unlock here, which we've kind of discovered, and we're sitting at now 27% of migration. So how does this work? So, for us and for teams who have a treasury, right, we can set up an LP, but not a lot of people have 100K kind of just sitting around to be able to build that experience. So if I'm somebody who launched on Pump Fund and my market cap's at like $1 million, how do I move over to a new contract? And so we built this kind of new mechanism to be able to basically recover a lot of the locked SOL inside of the Pump Fund trenches, and also now extending into Believe app and some of these other launch pads. Because what the launch pads do is they literally lock the liquidity pool forever. So we did some research, and there's about 3 million Solana that's sitting in locked liquidity pools. And then maybe you spread another 100,000 Solana between Believe app and some of these other kind of launch pads. And so it's literally over $500 million that's just sitting there. And so for users, you need to be able to, take some of that SOL and fund a new liquidity pool. So how does it work? Let's say I launched, fake hustle on PumpSwap, and the market cap's $1 million. You could come to migrate.fund, and you can, if you're a creator, you can basically create a migration portal. And what that does is you put in the old contract. So I'd put in fake hustle, and then on the app itself, you could create a new contract, and you could call this new hustle. And then after the creator does that, they say, I want to set the market cap to $1 million. I want to try to get it to the same amount as it was before. And so once the creator sets that, then it's up to the creator, or the community members to basically share the information with the community and get them to commit their fake hustle tokens. And so in this example, or you can even say here with Tensorium, we have 27% of the tokens that are migrated, right? So 27% of the hustle token is now freely trading. You have 27% of the old token that is locked in migrate.fund. And in 14 days, when the migration ends, let's say there's 50% of the token or 60% of the Tensor token that's locked. We then basically systematically sell it down, basically sending the Tensorium chart to zero, and in that term, then be able to recover what is about at the current market cap, about $125,000 in Solana. And so in that, in that situation, then since we started the liquidity pool, we just take the liquidity back, and maybe we'll seed more, or you just use it for the team funds. But if you're somebody who does not seed an LP pool, I know this may sound confusing, but it's pretty straightforward. The community member, let's say, who has fake hustle and there's new hustle, all the community members commit 50% of fake hustle into this vault. The creator sets it for a 2-week schedule, and there's no LP pool on the other side, right? Because
so there's no trading immediately.
There's no immediate trading, but once the migration period ends, the platform then sells down that 50% to recover all the SOL, and then pairs it with the new token, and then a new LP is initialized. All of the people who committed their old fake hustle to migrate then get their tokens distributed, and the LP is deployed on Radium, and then the users begin to trade immediately. And this is kind of the kicker for creators or for CTO people, or however you want to go about it. All of the unclaimed tokens, right, or non-migrated tokens will go to the creator or the initiator of the platform. So here in our example with Agent Hustle, if only 50% of the people migrate, then the 50% that is non-migrated will go to the team, will go to us, right? And then it's up to us to decide what we want to do with it. Obviously, 50% is quite large treasury comparative to kind of the standards of the ecosystem. But, there's a lot of methods to go about it, right? Rewards, incentives, tokenomics. You could do burning. You could do, payments and funding operations, obviously exchange listings, and all kinds of different aspects that could go into that. So this could be attractive for creators who are stuck, right, on PumpSwap, and they're kind of in the same situations as us. And for people in the community know, we've already been having ongoing conversations with Radium, who's shown support, follows all the accounts, and also a few other quite large projects have reached out to us as well, in terms of using our services or having literally dozens of potential clients who want to go through this. So it's awesome that the community is now participating in this, because there are actually a lot of people watching this, from large, obviously, DeFi protocols to potential right, to potential clients of the platform or users of the platform, to creators and etc. So one question, somebody says plus jobs on the live stream. By creator, you really mean anyone could do it as a takeover, it seems. Also, is this a free tool? Yeah, literally anybody, right? So here's like a kind of a bigger example, right? Let's say I'll just use the Trump token because it has a large kind of liquidity pool with like $300 million. If you know a lot of people in the Trump community and you want to basically, carve your own token out of liquidity, you could basically, put the old contract in as Trump token, and then you could put the new token as Biden token. And if you get 1% or, maybe 2% of the Trump token locked up, then you basically are market selling 2% of the Trump token, which is probably millions of dollars, which then gets seeded into a liquidity pool. And then the tokens get distributed to all the people who committed their Trump token, right? So that's like a CTO option. There are a lot of builders as well who are interested in this, from various launch pads who didn't get the right start that they wanted, or the ecosystem is not what they thought it was. There's really just tons of varieties. The platform is a free tool. There is a platform fee for the sell-off. So when you take all of the tokens, right, whatever the migrated tokens are that are committed, there's a sell down for the Solana, and the platform will take a portion of that. It's single digit fees. And then a portion of those fees that are in the platform go back to the Hustle ecosystem. A variety of tokenomics between buybacks and some other ideas that we have. So Hustle will be the great beneficiary of it. The Hustle token, you could essentially kind of consider the Hustle token to be the platform token of migrate.fun, as well as the kind of platform token for agenthustle.ai, which is the DeFi AI project that kind of got us into this situation to create this kind of platform. So I hope that makes sense. Razul Beats says, what's next on the Hustle roadmap? You'll have to hop into our Telegram and see, but there are a lot of upgrades from Agent Hustle. Hopefully we could get the biggest upgrade launched this week, which includes a new UX on the website, our conditional engine, which has been highly anticipated, as well as a lot of optimizations. And for the future of migrate.fun, there is 30 to 40, I've heard, different teams that are potentially interested, maybe more. We are talking to people have reached out. Once that Hustle migration ends in 2 weeks, there'll probably be a cool off period, and we'll continue to have conversations with teams who are interested. And we'll be launching all of those who want to go through this as a cohort. So there are a handful of teams, or you could say a bunch of teams and protocols, who are kind of watching the Hustle migration to see how it goes. If it goes well, then they're basically going to want to commit to it. And if we get 10 people, if we get 5 teams, if we get 2 teams, or if we get 200 teams, they will all launch together to kind of make the platform go very viral, as well as kind of what the point was with the really awesome X share image, which I saw some people were able to figure out, some people were not. Adam put a lot of work into that.
The copy image, there were some things like it wouldn't work on mobile, and I know, it was just one of those things that one of our dev who was working on that particular aspect was like, bro, nobody's gonna click that button. They're gonna do the screen grab and then share it. And I was like, fine, let's just move on. There's something you have to give a little. But yeah, it's pretty smooth. Pretty smooth. And I think the general response by people has been, I think only one guy got hung up, and I think that was a mobile issue. Sometimes the Phantom doesn't play nice with your Safari browser on your iPhone or whatever. But other than that, I think it's been an incredibly smooth, knock on wood, so far. An incredibly smooth launch so far.
I agree.
I'd much rather have the problems before the launch than after the launch, right? We definitely went through that, but it seems like the product is actually smooth.
Yeah, I'll go through kind of what we could have done better, which we'll learn for future kind of participants. Plus Job says, "Oh, are you picking who can use the tool right now?" So right now it's just us, just our project that's using it. There are teams who have reached out. If you have reached out or if you're interested, then please just shoot me or Adam or Chris a DM or any account, the Migrate Fund account, Agent Hustle account, Emblem account, or just hop in the Telegram. Literally many ways to reach us. Just let us know. Happy to hop on a call or share more information. It's not freely accessible. Again, we just want to get through the hustle migration. We have to show basically to everyone that there is demand for these kind of things. There is a lot of interest and it just has to go right, which it does seem to be going. So,
I mean, I think to Jobs' question there, the idea is that it will be open and you'll just be able to use it. That's the longer term idea. But with any of these things, there are a million little details that you have to get right. And in order to make it, just whatever, a contract that's a different number of tokens or different market caps or this or there's infinite number of like things. And so I think, getting it right with teams first and working through those first is important before we open it up to the public.
yeah. Chris, any thoughts on the migration so far? And then I'll kind of dive into some other stuff.
Yeah, it's going super well. There's always like a lot of unknown unknowns, and so in terms of like how it's going so far, it's going really, really good. You're always going to get a few edge cases, and someone's always going to like kind of get caught up. But I mean, you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquidity moving back and forth, new contracts being deployed on both ends, literally like hundreds or thousands of people moving tokens over the next 24 hours. So there's like a lot of things that can go wrong. So in terms of how it's gone so far, in regards to how many things can go wrong, it's going really, really well. So expect that to continue, but especially for the first launch on a brand new platform that's never been done before, this was an incredible launch. I think people should be like super excited, and our team internally, it should just kind of like hats off to them because it's been a long couple of weeks.
Well, I can't wait for that migrate Trump, migrate Millennia token.
CTO, the Melania token. So I guess you could say, so what could we have done right or better? There's really only one thing so far that really went wrong. So I have here pulled up on the live stream, the Tensorium token. You see it's been pretty stable so far. You look at the hustle token itself, right? There was a gigantic kind of pump in the beginning. And this is something we were trying to prevent, actually, was to make sure that this does not have this gigantic kind of pump on the chart, right? A lot of people kind of hate that when we do too. Unfortunately, with the Solana ecosystem, people will literally just market buy anything. And so the token, it was initialized at $1.4 million market cap, which was where the Tensorium token was at launch. And it got literally gigantically pumped to 10 mil and then kind of came down. And we were trying to time the LP right alongside the migration bridge or the kind of public migration bridge. And right as we initialized the LP, there were, I guess you could say, some accounting errors with the bridge. And that took us about 2 to 3 hours to fix. And that's kind of where you see the dull period where there's like no training or no trading for about 2-3 hours. But we got it fixed and, learned that for a better experience and continue to move forward. I guess now as a community, we just got to make sure that the value, increases past 10 mil. And then this is just a little blip on the chart. And for us now, we actually have to go and do all of the admin things, which is a gigantic pain in the ass, which we've now done like 10 times. But we have the deck screener updated. You have to go to CoinGecko and announce a migration. We have to create a new CoinGecko chart or a new hustle chart for CoinGecko. You have to add it to CMC. I've already notified cookie.fun, to update the contract and stuff, trying to get in touch with Kaido. to update all of the information, right? When the ticker changes, that affects a lot of the InfoFi kind of related aspects to it. There's just like, going to Photon and all these kind of ancillary trading platforms. And so that'll take, a week or two. A lot of those are not in our control. You could just kind of only submit the information and wait for them to get updated. But we were lucky that Deck Screener actually fixed it or updated the new Deck Screener actually quite fast, which was very surprising. Usually this stuff takes freaking forever.
Looks like we're at like 30% already. It's amazing, man.
It is. That's like a really, really good turnout. It looks like there's been maybe about 200 or 300 people who have migrated so far. I'm just looking. So at 187 holders, I think it was at like 30 or 40 before the migration portal opened. So it's actually going to be quite interesting, right? You think it's probably going to be a high supply or high degree of migrations or of the token supply with probably a little bit of a lower holder distribution, which just means, whatever the leftover tokens are, we have to do a good job at distributing it quite widely, like some of these other projects, like some other AI projects and different types of incentives and things of that nature. So if anyone has questions, you could feel free to kind of come up. The one point I'd like to just kind of drive home is that this is a 2-week period. So we are trying to get the information out as soon as possible or everywhere, for people to migrate their tokens, because once the migration portal closes, then the supply gets sold. This will probably be another viral moment when people see the Tensorium chart go to 0 and people start screenshotting it and saying, "I told you so."
Rugged. They rugged.
They rugged. I told you, right? And then you're probably just going to see the hustle chart going the other way, right? Because that gives pretty certain clarity, to the community that, if only let's just say only 50% gets migrated, that's essentially 50% that's like locked up, right? So the supply essentially just got cut in half, which what we've learned in all the different conversations we've talked with teams and liquidity providers and traders and such is that, a lot of these charts that are quite successful do not have 100% distribution at all. Like very rare. Even a lot of the gigantic layer ones, right? Like Ethereum and BNB, even Solana has the majority of it locked up in the beginning. And so
one of the interesting things that a team member of ours kind of broke down for me, which I did not understand, was that like I was something like if at a $1.5 million market cap, if you sell like 30% of the existing tokens, you take out it's like 90% of the liquidity pool. It's crazy. And I had no idea that was the case, right? So if you can get to 50% migrated, you can basically unlock all the liquidity, which is incredible.
So here's the math for people that are curious. We'll give you a little bit of alpha because we did run a lot of diagnostics and analytics on this to kind of understand, how much you need. If you get 30% user turnout and you sell it all in one candle, you basically recover 80% of the Solana in the pool. If you if you get 50%, it's 86.49%. If you get 75%, it's 90%. And if you get 100%, if you sell every single Tensorium, you actually only get 92% of the Solana. So it's actually nearly impossible, or maybe actually impossible, to recover all of it. And this has to do with like slippage and MEV that kind of comes in between. So I would say, for sufficiently for a community, if it's anybody that's interested, 30% is probably like the target. If you could get above 30%, you'll get 80% of whatever the Solana is in that liquidity pool. And some of these liquidity pools are quite large, man. I mean, I've been looking around, like with Chill Guy, it has like $4 million in Solana in the pool.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of these like dead projects that, could be CTO'd, or, whoever the community lead is could basically, initialize everyone to do that, which is very important because there is a social contract to a degree on a lot of this as well. But You need influence, or you need people who just really hate the token. I think is kind of part of it. Adam, were you going to say something?
Yeah,
Or
I was going to
Chris?
say, well, it's like, I mean, I know a bunch of guys, right, who they're basically there, and like 5 of their friends basically have the whole token, right? They CTO'd it, and yeah, they have other friends in it, but it's basically their project now. And for them to just be like, fuck, let's just do this. And maybe they take back a percentage of it. They fund some of the, some of the liquidity pool. Whatever. It gives them a lot of options, and they can control a much larger supply of tokens going forward. It's just, I think it's going to get, I mean, there's obviously already been enough interest from people that showed me, obviously this is, people are very interested in this. It's like, it's the gamification of migration, and it's going to be interesting to see what teams do and people.
Facts. And like, recovering some of the trapped liquidity pool is better than recovering none of it, right? Like so much of it is just like non-recoverable. So even if you recover 10, 20, 30% of that, it's much better than none of it. There's so many completely dead tokens that barely even exist. And another way to think about it is kind of like a fork, right? A fork follows the longest chain on a blockchain. And with these, the kind of like fork would follow like the most liquidity. And so it's kind of like a new age fork. You're just
Yep.
forking on-chain tokens rather than forking the actual chains themselves.
Plus Job says Solana specific, right? Yep, Solana. The ticker starts with HUSTL. You could probably just type in hustle in the index screener, and you'll see it's at a $1.5 million market cap. Arwin says win Tensor CTL. Yeah, that'd be kind of funny, actually.
Yeah.
It'd be funny. It'd be funny if like Hustle, when he's fully automated and like trading himself, actually CTOs his own coin. That'd be kind of funny to it. Plus Jaws also asked, could you migrate BRC20 to runes or alkanes or vice versa? Bitcoin's a little bit more specific. We're actually going to figure this out with the Emblem Vault, Cobalt to Keys migration, which is happening in a few months. I won't go too much into that because people get confused, but there are people experimenting with kind of Bitcoin migrations and Bitcoin intra operability. Inter is like from chain to chain. Intra is like from ecosystem to ecosystem within the chain. We love the Bitcoin ecosystem. That's Bitcoin ecosystem is the largest user of Emblem Vault. And so that is something we would like to expand in. The kind of cool part here is we can actually make migrate.fund cross-chain, right? Outside of Bitcoin. We actually have had a handful of requests for virtuals to Solana, as well as Clanker to Solana, right? Because those are 2 launch pads where the liquidity gets locked. So this system actually fits in pretty nice. It only takes a little bit of more back-end development for us to really add. We are going to stick with Solana initially. That is the largest market by far, not even close. But then doing these kind of cross-chain migrations, I think, is a real big opportunity, especially as more L2s are created, whatever the next kind of L1 is with like SUI. People are going to want to move literally from one blockchain to another, just like people move from one country to another. Like that's literally the same idea. It's the same thesis of Emblem, which is like in the real world, you take non-fungible items and assets like vehicles and art, tickets, whatever, and you move them from one country to another, right? That's literally the whole thesis of Emblem. This is kind of the whole thesis of migrate.fun, which is you're going to take your community from one chain to another based off of what's hot, what's interesting, kind of, etc. So look out for that. Plus Jobs also says lock and burn inscriptions and issue new UTXOs, I guess. Yeah, it is kind of interesting. The Starkware project where they're taking USDC from, I guess, Starkware L2 and issuing it as a rune, I think is kind of like, it's a kind of more of a mint and burn mechanism, but they're kind of setting the path there. We do have Anthony on stage, who's been a great community member. What's good, bro?
What's happening? Hey, just a quick thought. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but my first thought when you guys launched the migrate.fun is, is there some way for people to exploit this? Just random people running around grabbing liquidity from, you know, good projects or projects that have just kind of died, or vice versa? I mean, is there a possibility of, you know, in a bad way, like let's just say I wanted to grab a bunch of liquidity from any project, John's project, right?
Yeah, no, that's
And
absolutely possible. Absolutely.
Totally.
It's totally possible. So I think that's one of the things, you know, at the beginning, obviously we're going to, you know, try and work with teams and get all the systems built out. But at the end of the day, this is actually like, I don't know if we necessarily want to discourage this. I think it's actually, you can have kind of, you know, a community could be split within a project itself to do something like that. So I guess to answer your question, the answer is yes. That's totally possible. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it's totally possible, and it's just kind of comes down to who has the most social capital to, you know, get enough of the supply deposited to remove the liquidity and start a new contract. So it'll be interesting to see whether the original token owner actually has the clout to keep it anymore. It's just kind of like a game of who has the more kind of social capital. But yeah, it's totally possible, and I foresee it happening.
Go ahead, Anthony. I had to mute you because your background noise.
Yeah, no, sorry. Let me turn that down. I was just, that was my first initial thought, is in a bad way, because this turned out to be, I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun, right? I mean, it could get interesting, and a lot of us could go take back projects that, you know, have just been dead or not being, you know, pushed right. But essentially, if I went to XYZ project and got enough of the community to move their token supply over,
Yeah,
you know,
they're
creator now in control of a lot of supply that is, you know, or a lot of liquidity that has been moved over, and could I essentially just run off with that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially you could, right? You know, this is kind of a word I'm gonna throw out here. Some people hate it in the industry. Some people kind of welcome it. It's called vampire attacking. If you're around in 2017, 18, this was kind of really popularized by a protocol called Sushi, which vampire attacked Uniswap's liquidity pools by taking their liquidity pool tokens and essentially wrapping them and taking their liquidity to their platform. It lasted quite a while. That kind of idea kind of faded. And there's been other types of vampire attacks that exist, right? So you could say this is kind of a vampire attack on liquidity. You know, does the idea, you know, inspire individuals to, you know, move liquidity around? Possibly, right? Could that be kind of predatory? It's quite possibly. You still, at the end of the day, the person still has to convince the community to literally deposit their tokens and commit to a migration where these people are essentially not going to be, most of them, I assume, will be the like migration type where there's no trading for however long the migration period ends, right? So if I'm essentially vampire attacking a Melania token, I'm not going to set up a liquidity pool with $3 million on the other side, right? That is just way too much risk. But I will try to convince people or encourage them, you know, to deposit and get 1, 2, 3% of the supply, or even half a supply, honestly, because it's a gigantic liquidity pool, to then commit their token, not trade it, and then create a new token, which then you actually have to build, right? Then you actually have to stick to. So there's a giant social kind of element that exists in this. And it's really what we're going to test out and see. Really, the initial idea for building it is for builders and creators. That's why we created it for us, right? If you are a creator and initialize migration and you have a successful LP launch, then you will get access to that LP, right? We basically are going to have a temporary lockup period on the LP for 90 days. Might extend that depending on to see how it goes. And after that, right, the creator could literally remove everything from the LP if they wanted to. The reason why is because these are not meme coins. These are utility projects. And actually, before Pump Fund existed and meme coins, that was the standard. Like the DeFi project owned the liquidity pool. They could have moved the assets out anytime they wanted, but they also had access to the rewards. Obviously, right, there is the CTO kind of meme coin style things. So there's going to be trust and there's going to be experiments probably that's had. But for us, we're thinking of it with, people with long-term visions who are kind of stuck in short-term ecosystems, and it just doesn't have a match. Obviously, we'd like people to experiment with the CTO and stuff because I do think there's a large opportunity there for people who have influence, not just like an influencer on Twitter, but influence in your own community. You can actually have quite a small following and have large influence over your community.
I'll give you one like simple example, Anthony, I think, which is really like interesting. So if you look at like a token like Brainlit, right? It's like $4.5 million is like their market cap. And that, I know that community is relatively small, but say it's 100 people, and those 100 people who are like the legit community members are like, let's do this. And then, but rather than one person getting the overflow of tokens or the tokens that aren't migrated, it just evenly distributes amongst everybody who actually, migrated, right? Then you have basically 100 people who migrated now own the entire token supply. Bro, it's going to be like, I mean, this is like CTO 2.0, man. This is like real holder base of like the hardcores, and the people who weren't paying attention or weren't involved. Guess what? They just got dumped to zero, basically. And you have this brand new token on the other side that has the real community members, the members who hung around and were around, and now they have a real control of the token again. So I think it could get real. I'm just excited. It's going to get real interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's what the experiment will go. Anthony, do you have anything else?
No, that was my question, which I like the idea that you have the opportunity to do this kind of stuff. With it always comes unforeseeable, exploitations or whatever. But I think the biggest thing that will protect against that is, I can convince 150 people to move their token supply over to this new contract. However, they're going to ask the question, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, if the price isn't going to go up, or if there's nothing going to be built, why would I do that? Right. I mean, I get that. So that's cool. I'm excited to see what happens for sure.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is a pretty interesting question. We have put some safety mechanisms in for it. So for one, there's something that's called, I think we called it liquidity support. So when you go in and create a contract, there's kind of this chicken or the egg situation where it's like, if you've ever initialized the LP, you know how this goes. You have to essentially set the market cap for the token. Right. So when I went to set up the liquidity pool for Hustle, I had $60,000 in Sol. And then you have literally all of this Hustle, right? And so you have to basically set a price per token, which basically sets the market cap, which then tells you how much Hustle you have to deposit into the LP, right? So if I set it at $1.4 million market cap with 60K Sol, it came out to 40 million Hustle, which is 4% of the supply. So if you think of this idea, when you're creating a migration, if your token's, let's say, at 10 million, who knows where the token could be 10 days from now or 5 days from now, right? Based off of the activity. So you do have to set the market cap prior. That's just kind of how the flow of the liquidity goes. So if in this theoretical situation, if I set the new token to $10 million market cap, because the $10 million market cap is what the old token is, then you can set this liquidity support idea to where if the liquidity or if the token's committed is, anything less than 20% or 10%, then anyone who commits their old token into the migration platform can basically redeem the tokens and pull it out, right? Or there's this other mechanism where it just sells, and then you can just basically take the Sol instead. So there's a few different options there. And the one thing we encourage for any, builder who's interested in this, or kind of, somebody who's interested in like a liquidity CTO, is to reach out to us, because every single conversation is different. Every person has different objectives, right? Some people just want to enrich themselves. Some people are actually legitimately trying to build a project and they're, lacking funds. And so, or maybe they set up their initial liquidity pool wrong or had no tokens. So there's so many variables that are being introduced that we just encourage people to come talk to us, because the more people who do, the better parameters and options that we can implement. Another one is from a popular launch platform. Some people in the community have asked, for us, they say, hey, the majority of my holders are not really crypto natives, right? So I do want to leave this platform, but I'm afraid that there won't be that many people committed, or the majority of people will miss out, right? So can you give me, a list of the people who don't migrate, so that I can do with it as I will, just so I can kind of verify, right? So there's kind of all kinds of different, again, variables or different requests that people want and that people need. And the only way we'll find them out is going through, different types of experiences. Arwen says, can we have a brief recap on what the advantages of Hustle will be over Tensor? And it's better, and why? Yeah, it's actually a pretty good question. So the thing community's been asking for is tokenomics, right? That's what we all want. Now with we're a US based company, so a little bit more of a friendly regulatory regime allows us to do different types of functionality, but we couldn't, or utility, but we couldn't do that with no supply, right? Like, how are we going to give rewards when we only have 5% of the supply, right? You could do this kind of like buyback system, but it's just like you're kind of, robbing Peter to pay Paul in that situations. And you do actually see a lot of protocols blow up who try to implement that type of idea. So we actually need tokens, right, to incentivize people, to get people talking, to get people using the platform, to build, revenue for Agent Hustle, to get people in here. So with Hustle, first and foremost is there's some tokenomic aspects that we're going to be integrating into Agent Hustle, the platform itself, agenthustle.ai. We've been kind of pretty public about this, that we're adding subscriptions pretty soon, right? So you kind of have to pay because AI is very expensive. So we want to implement a reward system. We want to implement a different type of, I guess you could say, lockup, right? Kind of experience. There's different types of things with like buybacks you can do and airdrops. We have a quite wide variety of things that we want to implement. It's really going to come down to how many tokens we get back. The more tokens we get back, the more we can reward people, the more things that we can do. The less that we get back, right, then you kind of have to go about a different aspect. But it is going to be intertwined into agenthustle.ai pretty deeply, because that is something that we believe in. And now with a lot of, again, regulatory clarity in the US, we're actually able to do these. One of the issues we ran into with Koval for Emblem was the last 4 years, we had a burning mechanism, had to remove that, couldn't do staking, right? You basically are kind of just a useless token that's tangentially related to the platform, right? That's kind of how meme coins were proliferated in that lack of regulatory clarity. But now there is, and now we can actually have a lot of fun. And we see some new tokenomics starting to come back, right? Like buybacks are really popular, which is just, it's the same idea in TradFi. And we're open to requests and ideas, but we do have quite a list, especially some more unique builds for Agent Hustle specifically in terms of tokenization and agentic properties that are just related to DeFi AI, I would say, or maybe just agents times crypto. So that's what I got there. Obviously, with Agent Hustle, we're going to be expanding chains. We're adding more data and analytics, as well as tokenomics, hopefully this month and next month, as well as expanding chains. We've mentioned many times that we want to expand to support Bitcoin ecosystem, right? Things like runes and ordinals and BRC 2.0 and alkanes, counterparty, stamps, right? Kind of the whole lot. That's a community we're very close with, and no other agentic platform is really even considering. I really have not seen any other platform even consider any of these. And I think that like AI will just completely revolutionize the Bitcoin ecosystem. And then obviously EVM expansion as well, right? Things like Hyper EVM, things like Sonic, things like Base, and yeah, continue to grow from there, and then actually implement things outside of the kind of crypto ecosystem that you could do, right? With like Cash App and credit card payments, and Polymarket is like a big one we want to integrate as well. And I see Adam fucking graveling over there.
Well, I'm like this day. I think I'm on day 10 of trying to get Toli, the founder of Solana, to use Agent Hustle, man. It's like, bro, we have the #1 DeFi AI agent in the world. He's right here. He's on your blockchain, and there's no fucking AI agents on your blockchain. So anyway, everybody tweet at him. I want to get him eventually to use Hustle. That's my goal right now.
We'll get him.
My complete goal in life.
Yeah, the Solana Foundation was interested. I mean, we had a call with them, right?
Yep.
They were interested in what was going on. It's actually kind of crazy. There's like a few. There's literally probably less than 5 DeFi AI projects on Solana that still exist that have anything to do with trading.
Yep. Bro, it's funny. Today's all about the token, which is great. And this will happen. But at the end of the day, the product is it's what's going to push the token. And I mean, who knows? This is the kind of crazy thing about, when you're a builder and just an entrepreneur in general. Certainly when you're a tech entrepreneur, you have to be flexible. And, I've heard enough stories, been involved enough to know that what you're building might not be the thing you think it is, and you might turn into something else. And I think, this Migrate platform is just one of these things where we saw a need for ourselves. And now that we've put it out there, we realize there are hundreds of other teams that need this. So who knows? Maybe this is the thing that actually completely moves the needle for us as a company. If it is, fantastic. That's not to say we're not obviously not going to abandon anything, but just you never know what's going to be the thing that hits. And so I'm psyched for that. And this was obviously a pretty heavy lift, but we got it done fast, which showed we're a kind of a dynamic team, and obviously smooth because people are having a great experience. So
yeah,
momentary win at least. Yeah.
Shizzy is here. Says, "Yo, my guys, great job. Good to see you, Shiz." Says, "Experience was perfect. I thought it was going to be a process, but it was seamless." As we sit here with 31.3% of the migration starting to slow down a little bit. Total migrated 313,315,666 or 66 tokens. Remaining 683 million. At a rate at about, what's it say, 130 million tokens or 13% per hour is the current rate. So we'll continue to grow here. Have a lot of fun. Maybe we'll wrap it up here unless anybody else has any other questions. Just, stay tuned for Hustle. You can also buy it as well. Right on the market, easy to go. And in 2 weeks, when the migration ends, we'll, begin the next chapter. But we're still going to be continuing to build lots of Hustle products, and that'll be it. So, Chris, you have any final comments or anything?
No, man, I just think it's pretty unique that, we needed to build this product anyways. And so it's not like we had to spend a ton of dev time just going on like a, tangent of where we needed to go anyways. And so just a huge win for us to be able to productize it and see, fill a kind of a niche in the market. And, there's a ton of Agent Hustle updates coming this month. So don't mean to take any kind of, momentum away from the platform of Agent Hustle, but there's a ton of updates coming that way. So super.
I think they work hand in hand, right? I mean, it's the beauty of it, right? It's like,
of course, I just don't want anyone to think like, oh, they're just doing this new product.
they're just milking the token. It's like, well, maybe a little, but you got to get it done. We had to do this. It had to happen. And we built this amazing product that makes it happen. Which, and Jake's already said, like, this is going to directly benefit. If this platform takes off, this is directly going to benefit the Hustle token. Just makes it very bullish on Hustle. And then obviously the Hustle token goes with Agent Hustle. So here we go, man. It's what we call a flywheel in the business.
Yeah. And like, I mean, how many teams are getting products to market? Like almost none. Dude, hate to say it, but it's just a reality. Products. And so anytime like someone gets a product to the market, it's kind of a win for the whole ecosystem. So we happen to just get a lot of products to market. So good for us.
Good for
Anthony,
us.
Anthony has his hand raised. Yeah. You're muted, man.
Yeah. Okay. I know. I was just going to say, obviously, we want as many good character investors who invested with good faith who want to grow to migrate their tokens. But this might be kind of a interesting question, but it seems to me
You're cutting out, man.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It was,
You got your
I got a phone call. That was annoying. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, obviously we want as many people to migrate that, have invested time and energy into their investment. But does it seem to me that it would be better for the overall tokenomics of Hustle and for the team and for rewards and all that for less people to migrate? Or am I like, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
the rest of that, so you guys would have more options with it as a team, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think we want people to migrate. But obviously you never, even the best migrations ever in crypto have maybe pushed 85%. That's like the best metric ever. So we're not concerned that 100% is going to migrate. That's never going to happen just because it's impossible. People forget their tokens, they lose their wallets, they don't pay attention. But obviously we want to encourage we don't want anybody losing their tokens. We want to encourage everybody, but yeah, there's no such thing as 100% migration. That's impossible. So there definitely will be some tokens there for sure.
Yep. Migrate your tokens. We want you guys
migrate your tokens. And do not wait, guys. Do not wait. Go do it now. There's no reason to wait. Go do it now.
Takes 10 seconds.
Migrate the tokens. It's fun. All right. We made it fun so that it's like people actually do it. It's fun.
That's awesome. We do have on stage Adam. Do you have a question, comment, thoughts on the conversation?
Yo, what's up, guys? What's up? I'm just going to ask, will you burn liquidity of the token?
Will we what? Buy liquidity?
No, like burn the liquidity.
Oh, yeah. I guess you guys will have to migrate to find out. I mean, it's always something that's always a tool.
Well, let me ask you, do you prefer burning or do you prefer just, locking? What do you prefer?
Of the liquidity, it's like you're supposed to burn it.
Oh, I'm sorry, the liquidity.
Yes, he's asking us if we're going to burn tokens, based off of a retention of the supply.
Yeah. No, I think
I mean like the liquidity pool. Like the liquidity pool is still like,
no, we're not going to.
We're not going to lock in the liquidity pool. Nope.
No, that's like our capital that we put there. The whole point of this is for builders to have access to the liquidity pool. You're obviously going to have to trust us that we're not going to rug it. But I don't know why we'd rug the liquidity pool with our own funds that we put into it with a platform that we just built. But if you do have pause there, then yeah, always down to hear the reason why.
I think staking will be one of the best things. If you can pull that off, that'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a few options, right? So, I mean, I won't give away too much, but right. The question is, okay, if you get like an overabundance of the token supply, what do you do with it, right? One option is obviously to burn it, right? That's generally what some teams do. Another option is distribution. From what I suspect, right? If we get less than 1,000 people migrating, you're generally going to want to try to distribute that to people, right? Because you want to grow the community, right? Burning it is only going to benefit the small amount of individuals, right? And actually a lower supply or low holder count, with people who hold, 0.1% or higher generally will prevent a lot of people from coming, right? Because nobody wants to get dumped on, but everybody likes free tokens, right? Especially if you don't have to buy it. So I would say that's more favorable than, burning the supply. But obviously if, there's 70% of the supply, right? If no one migrates now, we have 70% of the supply. That's like quite a large amount to distribute, but all options are on the table and it really depends on people migrating. And we're going to continue to post about it literally every day. I have to go through all the admin stuff. And, I've reached out to as many teams and protocols possible about it. And, unfortunately, not everyone will respond. Not everyone's paying attention, but it was part of the reason why we did the X posting thing after migration. Obviously, you want the virality of it for people to say, what the hell is this? But obviously, to people who are in the community, based off the algo, get the post. And they're like, oh, shit, tokens migrating. All right, so let's migrate this stuff. So, and you can only go kind of as far as you want. Does anyone have any other questions? If not, we will wrap it up here. 450 people tuned in over the last hour on the live stream, so that's pretty good. I definitely have, it's like 6 or 7 Telegram DMs, probably a lot more in that Agent Hustle account. So a lot of positive response. A few final things here. Solon or Brick on Solana says trust the plan. Solmav says I trust Jake and Chris and Adam, winky face, JK. Nothing for love for the hustle team. Also, obviously, we love Brick on Soul as well, and we'll continue to grow. Awesome turnout, 31.3%. So slowing down here. We'll continue to grow, and we appreciate everyone for joining us and hanging in. This is just the future, just the beginning of the hustle. Until then, please follow Agent Hustle, who's on stage. If you're not doing it, please give him follow. Works best for us, so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on. And we'll be back Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's when we host our shows, Tuesday and Thursday. Until then, follow Agent Hustle. Make sure you migrate your tokens, and we will see you guys soon.
Later, guys.
Later. Let's go.